Welcome back. We want to talk about business networking today, and we're joined by Eric Standlee, a true giant when it comes to business networking. He started out with a small group of 6 in his networking group in February of 2008, and has seen his group grow to well over 13,000. And he's the founder of the networking group in Houston, and also a managing partner with American Prudential Capital. We're also joined today by RD Yoder, another true giant. He's the president of Houston Networking News, which is a premier networking organization with membership well over 18,000 members that connects professionals seeking to build their businesses. It was created in 2003, and HNN has connected literally thousands of business professionals, culminating in millions of dollars of sales for their companies. And today we have RD. RD, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be on today. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Wanted to get a little bit more information about who you are, kind of how you got into the networking arena, that part of your business.
Yeah, well, it started out, we list on paper that in 2003 we started an organization that focused on business development through networking. But actually it dates back a little bit further than that. We actually had a company that did membership and business development for chambers all around the United States. And what we saw is that while some of them did it well, some of them did it not so well. So what we found is that there was a pressing need here in the greater Houston area. And because the economy is so robust, and this is a small business owner's dream here in the Houston area, we thought, why not do this here in our own backyard? Plus our wives were saying, hey, it's time to come home a little bit more. So we decided, hey, let's help the business community spend a little more time at home. And therefore, we took all of our areas of expertise and applied it to an organization that focused on business development through networking. So that was our story. So we launched in 2003. Did a little bit of market research actually in 2002, and did the grand launch in 2003. And much like Eric's story, we started out with just a few people. We actually started out with a website where we featured all the events around the greater Houston area, a calendar feature, if you will. And we started with a handful of folks, and then people kept pressing us for more events. And that became something that was even bigger, and so it's grown over the years. And so what we found is that there's a tremendous opportunity here in the Houston area, and so that's our condensed version. Right. I just gave you 7 years of business development in a minute. I
noticed you said something about how small business is really a great place, or Houston is a great place for small business. What do you think are some of the characteristics about Houston that make it such a great place for small business?
We're Houstonians. I don't want to give any more credit to Dallas people, but no, it's an entrepreneurial spirit here, and I think people are very independent. First, the label and the tag of being a Texan. We're fiercely independent here in the state of Texas, and what we found over the years is that there's New York pride and there's West Coast and so forth, no matter where you go in the country. But what you're going to find is that people are fiercely independent here, and I think people want to literally translate that over into the business community and take on the entrepreneur and the business ownership for themselves.
Oh, that's great. Appreciate that. And also with you, Eric, if you could tell us a little bit about how you got into the networking and building your business through networking as well.
Well, unlike RD, I wasn't very good at networking when I got started. I had to learn from books. I had a friend introduce me to it through books, and then I practiced it online until I got good enough to actually meet people in person. So I was a very introverted geek, and I call myself a recovering geek now. And that's because I've learned to step out and do networking that I couldn't do before. And so it was in 2008 when we first had our first mixer, but like RD's group, we built that online a little bit before then. Had about 2,000 members by the time we got started, but we only had 6 people show up to that first event. 30 people had RSVP'd, but it was that day in February 2008 when it was freezing rain and the freeways were a parking lot. And so 6 people showed up. That event now in Uptown Park has over 400 people show up. So it's a very big event. And now we have events all over town too. I didn't run into RD until I started doing this. I didn't know that Houston Network News even existed, which speaks to the size of Houston and the opportunity here. We don't really take any business from each other. We drive people back and forth, and so it's a nice compliment to be in the same business area with him.
Appreciate that. If you could describe for us what it really meant to move from, like you said, a geek to this power networker. What helped you make that transformation?
Well, I like to say that there's this line between need and disgust, and you got to get to a point where you're really in disgust with where you are, and you have to make a change. And so I think I was at that place because I'd built an IT company that was in a space with a lot of competition, and I looked at my mother's company she'd had for, at that point, 17 years or so, and I said, I need to focus on her business for a while. It was a much more successful business. But what it took to be successful in that business was networking. And I didn't want to believe that at first. I tried to apply all my geek knowledge, try to drive some traffic to our website. All of that wasn't going to work for financial services. And so I had to learn how to get out there in front of people. And it was really frightful for me. I didn't like it at all at first. I liked to network computers together. I didn't like to network people. I didn't know what that meant.
Are there any particular books or mentors along the way that you can think of that really helped you to make that transformation?
Yeah, two people here in the city of Houston. Christine Spray is a really good friend of mine. She is the consummate networker, very well known in the Houston area. She networked really well, and it took me a while to get on her calendar, but she lived out servant leadership for me. And then I was reading a book by Keith Ferrazzi called Never Eat Alone. I love the book. It's a little outdated now, but it's still really good. And it turned this geek into a recovering geek.
I noticed you're shaking your head about Keith Ferrazzi. Is that a book you're familiar with?
That's an excellent book. Yeah, I guess for myself, there's a couple of people on a global level. One's always been Zig Ziglar, because I love Zig because he does everything with integrity and with honesty. And another guy is Ivan Misner, who's the founder of the largest networking organization in the world, BNI. And he's done it on a local level. There was a guy here, he passed away last year. His name was Elroy Forbes, and he had such a passion for the community, and he loved the people of Houston. And I just saw him his life was networking and helping people, and I was really drawn to that. In fact, we reached out to him a lot of times, just for either for guidance or for just for any type of assistance. So he was always there, and I still miss Elroy now.
Now, do either of you have perhaps persons that consider you as a mentor? Maybe can you think of a certain person that has you as a mentor? And if you could, let us know an example of how networking transformed their business.
Well, I can, I don't know if I want to name somebody by name, but I can say that there's a owner of a marketing firm here in Houston who started out as an employee, just didn't want to, leave, and finally he got the pink slip and decided to go and start something on his own. And he said several times that it was because of me that his business has been very successful. He gets a lot of business by coming to our networking events, and he's a great networker now. But I mean, that's kind of embarrassing to say. He calls me a mentor.
Right. Again, you don't have to name the person, but if you could share.
I have a couple. One is a business where they literally were going to give up on their business and decided to change everything, and I just gave them some basic networking advice, and it changed their business forever. The other one was kind of on a personal level, who made a personal decision. They were going through a lot of turmoil, and I had kind of taken them aside and offered some words of encouragement. And I kind of left it there. And then 2 years later, this person came back to me and said, you know what, you did not realize the impact you made on my life. My life has been changed forever by the things that you said that one day. And I'll be forever in gratitude to you. And that really, it touched me beyond just a business sense. And it touched me on a personal level. And I still think about it today, how it really affected me and it affected him. And I'm very thankful for that.
Well, appreciate that. Now let's do this. Let's talk about kind of some tactical ways that a new person who's not used to networking, he's gone to his first in Houston or his Houston Networking News or some other networking event. Give us an idea. What are some things, maybe some do's and don'ts of what they should do when they're trying to build their network?
Sure. I think the first thing you don't do is you don't go and vomit all over people about your business. I use that term specifically because that's what it feels like to the person who's being sold at the networking event. If that person is across from you is telling you all about their business and how you should buy their product right now, you're not happy to be there. And you got to think about the other person that you're talking to. So instead, I tell people the right way to approach that is to give first, or what we call servant leadership. And that is to ask that person, how can I help you? Who do you need to meet? Who's your right target? Who are the best referral sources for you? And then try to introduce them to that person, even in that event if you can.
That's a good point. How about you, RD?
There's a lot of different don'ts. I try to focus on the do's, but here's a good don't. Don't be the blackjack dealer at the events, and he knows what I'm talking about. Passing out cards like you're a blackjack dealer.
Or brochures.
Or brochures, or whatever the case may be. nothing turns me off more than someone who's making a hard sell or a hard pitch at an event, and they're just handing out business cards because they think that's the way to network. That's an absolute don't. I mention a lot of times to beginning networkers and some of those who haven't gotten it, that some of the greatest tools you have are right there at the end of your arms and right here on the side of your head. We can do a lot by just a good handshake and by listening to what other people say. Once we've figured out what they have to say, then we can address their needs, wants, and desires. But you can't do that if you're talking all the time.
That's a good point. Now, how do we follow up? So you meet the person for the first time, you shake their hand, you start building a relationship. Give us some tips on what's some good ways to follow up. How should you just set up that next meeting?
Well, I got a real good don't for that. Don't expect that person to have an open spot on their calendar. If they're a really successful networker, they're going to be busy. So you're going to want to get on their calendar 2 weeks in advance. You're going to want to plan that really well, and you're going to make sure that you are on their calendar. Don't just assume that if you said Tuesday that they said okay. You want to make sure you confirm that's on the calendar. And then I would say make sure you do one-on-ones in between networking events. You can only learn so much standing in front of somebody at a networking event. You drink in one hand and you're talking about the kids, the weather, sports, business. You can only learn so much, but you can learn a lot more in a 1 hour one-on-one session with that person.
Did you have something to add to that just really quickly?
Common ground. Find common ground whenever you're doing your follow-up. If you can find some things like, for instance, as we're taping today, coming up tomorrow is a big fight. Are you a fight fan?
Not really.
Not really? Okay. Are you a sports fan? I mean, what do you like? What do you like to do in your spare time? What is, little things. What I'm trying to do is establish common ground with you. Once I do that, it eases, because this is a relationship that you're trying to build. You're not really trying to get out there and just sell somebody. So I try to find common ground, things that we share an interest. And if I don't share that interest, I find out what you like, and I try to find ways that maybe can make your life a little easier or more pleasurable.
That's a great point. All great points, actually. That's all the time we have. Thanks for watching Max Your Business. We've given you some actionable ideas that will help you and your business. And we've talked about ways to plan out your sales numbers, expand and grow with your current resources, and how to effectively build your business through business networking. We want to thank our wonderful guests for joining us. Next time we'll talk with experts and business owners about utilizing social media for business and managing sales teams. I'm your host, Rollis Fontenot. I'll see you next time. Remember, expect the best because you deserve what you expect.